Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Wishing you all the best for 2018. We are here in Thailand on a work retreat writing a book on autism and have been researching extensively the vestibular system. And since it's Christmas, I thought I would share with you some of the cool research that I've discovered on the vestibular system. First of all, let me tell you what the vestibular system is. It is a hidden sense that is operating all of your lifetime without you thinking about it very much. It's part of your balance system, and it sits inside your inner ear, and it's located right underneath your eyes in these temporal bones in your face. And it tells you whether you're moving, whether you're still, whether you're upside down, right side up, and where you are in relationship to gravity. You know, I'm sitting here, and you can see behind me the image of the trees moving in the glass. It's your vestibular system that tells you, am I moving or are those trees moving? So the vestibular system is always informing you whether you're still or the world is moving around you. And this is a hidden sense because you don't think much about this information unless it isn't moving. When you have vertigo or dizziness or something that we call gravitational insecurity, where you're afraid of movement, then you really pay attention to this information. And it produces something that we call cortical fatigue, where your thinking brain has to do the work that your brainstem does automatically. You have to think about all of these movements and feelings that you wouldn't normally have to think about. One of the coolest discoveries that has happened in the last decade with the development of a technology called galvanic vestibular stimulation. This is where you can put electrodes on the back of the neck, right at the base of the skull, and actually stimulate the vestibular system without moving your head. Now, this is an amazing thing because when we do brain imaging and you lie inside of an MRI scan tube, you have to stay still. So how do you measure movement when you have to lay still? Well, this new technology called galvanic vestibular stimulation allows the head to be still and the vestibular system to be activated. So we can see the impact of vestibular stimulation on the whole brain while you're lying inside the brain imaging chamber. Well, what we have discovered in looking at that research is that the vestibular system actually impacts the entire brain. It is the only sensory system that interfaces with every single part of the whole brain. That's amazing to me, meaning movement affects everything. So when you think about this new technology of galvanic vestibular stimulation, the brain feels like it's moving without moving. And that is a vastly influential way to understand the impact of vestibular input on all of the different parts of the brain and what they do. So let me tell you a little bit about what that discovery has told us. First of all, one thing that we knew was that the vestibular system has a big impact on posture and movement. This is something that we've known, for at least 50 years, where every time I move my head, a direct message is sent from my inner ear to my muscles in my body. This part of the vestibular system stops you from falling on your face when you're standing on the bus and the bus stops. And the instant change in movement from the bus stimulates the vestibular system, which directly feeds the muscles in your legs, your trunk, this part of your body, in your neck, in your arms, so that you protect yourself and stop yourself from falling and losing your balance. This is one of the most important and powerful pieces of information that you get from the vestibular system. Well, in looking at the impact of the vestibular system on muscles, we've discovered that the vestibular system has more load directly on the muscles we call the extensors. Those are the muscles on the back of my body. And whenever we stimulate the vestibular system, little countries or pools of neurons, we call them neuron pools, that feed the extensor muscles, they get loaded and they turn on and fire, even if I'm lying still. So that as my vestibular system gets stimulated, galvanic vestibular stimulation is one way, I'm turning on all these muscles in the back of my trunk, in the muscles of my legs that stop me from falling over. And then those little stimulation pieces of information cause a contraction in the muscles. And every time a muscle contracts, we get a little bit of data from what we call the proprioceptive system. These are all the little stimuli and receptors inside of the muscles that tell you, is a muscle contracting? Is it relaxing? And that sends information back to the brain that says, here's where your body is in space. So the vestibular system and the proprioceptive system together make up a very big part of what we call body awareness. Well, why is this extensor muscle vestibular input even important? It's important for those of us who work with children with a wide variety of developmental disabilities, for those of us who work with adults with neurological impairment or with orthopedic related issues. Because if we are treating the postural system where we want children to move and engage in their daily living activities with greater ease, then their body needs to work better. One of the things that we know about kids with autism, for example, is they have very poor body awareness. They don't know where their body is in space. They may pick up things and use too much force. They may bang into things. They may lose their balance easily. They may have difficulty engaging in daily activities. And thereby, their body awareness is a challenge. What this information tells us is that vestibular input can help in the treatment of these particular issues. So what does vestibular input look like? Well, I'm doing it now. That's vestibular input. Anytime I move my head through space, if I move my body, if I rotate my body, if I'm swinging on a swing, if I'm driving in a car, all of these movements stimulate the vestibular system. When I was a junior therapist, I used to think I needed all my swings in order for my clients to receive vestibular input. But now I know that every time you move your head, you're getting that same level of impact into the body. Think about children with autism who rock their body or who move their heads. We often think about this as a stereotypical stimming behavior that looks purposeless. What the brain informs us is that this is not purposeless, but a way of calibrating the brain or giving the brain the information that it needs because it's not processing it properly. So what I'm saying is that many of the children are engaging in these types of behaviors because it actually helps them feel where their body is in space. Helps them know, am I moving or is the world moving? Which is a big part of what's not working well for children with autism. There's a part of the brain that I'm in love with called the insula. And this is a structure that has been talked about more recently, maybe the last 10 years, with a greater degree of awareness and efficacy because of the depth of brain imaging that we now have afforded to us. Things like diffusion tensor imaging. The insula is deep inside the brain, and it has a very profound impact on a function we call interoception, which is how things feel on the inside of us. Can I feel my heartbeat? Can I feel my emotions? Can I feel my digestive system? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel angry? These are interoceptive functions. The insula also is where we process pain. And the brain doesn't know the difference between emotional pain and physical pain. Another really outstanding study used a form of stimulation we call caloric vestibular stimulation. This sounds absolutely disgusting to me because what they do is put cold water inside your inner ear and it stimulates the vestibular input, the vestibular system. And when that happens, the brain will receive that as if the head was moving. And through this kind of information, what they found is that there is activation inside the insula that actually changes the way we process pain, can alleviate pain, can minimize pain perception, can minimize disturbances in body awareness. In my work in mental health, I'm very interested in things like eating disorders, anorexia, places where individuals have altered body perception. And through vestibular input, we can see through the brain imaging that the brain is saying, vestibular input helps us to have a more appropriate body awareness through the stimulation of this brain part called the insula. It has a potential in many different psychiatric disturbances. Am I recommending that we put cold water in our ear? No. What I'm recommending is that we think about vestibular information, swinging, moving, biking, dancing, as an adjunct to treatment in psychiatric disorders. That through the introduction or the addition of a vestibular program where a person who is experiencing psychiatric-related issues, mental health-related issues, addictions, depression, anorexia, psychosis, that we can perhaps support the treatment of these types of disorders in addition to our traditional way of using vestibular rehabilitation. The other thing that we know about the vestibular system is its impact on cognition. This to me is so exciting, I can't stand it. You know, when you think about a number line, and the numbers on the left side are the smaller numbers, and the numbers on the right side are the larger numbers. This is called spatial timeline. They did an experiment where they moved people to the left and had them come up with generalized random numbers. And then they had them move to the right and they had them come up with generalized random numbers. They found a distinct correlation between left space and smaller numbers and right space with larger numbers. This is fascinating to me, that the direction of movement, backward, forward, side to side, would give you a spatial referent that would impact cognition. And it tells me that if your vestibular system isn't working well, you're going to have difficulty with memory of past, present, future, and you're going to have difficulty with numeracy and spatial perception. So that makes me think as a clinician that individuals, children, and adults who have learning-related difficulties will need vestibular input to support them in understanding these concepts. It makes me think about all of the trauma clients that I work with who either get stuck in the past or have difficulty accessing aspects of the past. This thinking makes me hypothesize that if we use those quadrants of the vestibular system, we could perhaps support the reprocessing of memories that are related to trauma. So if I have a person who's reliving trauma over and over and over, if I ask them to sit in an upright position and shift their weight forward when having a conversation about a traumatic memory, that I might resource the body in that way to give them a greater degree of ability to shift their mind out of those past traumas. Subsequently, if I'm trying to remember something from the past, might be able to shift my weight back and move my eyes up into the right upper quadrant, which is about retrieval of information. And that may support that person in having the ability to think about or bring back information that they're working to retrieve into the current state of their present thinking. There's one more thing about the vestibular system that I want to share, and that's the relationship of the vestibular system to emotion. The vestibular system has profound influence on the amygdala, which is all about emotional regulation, has profound influence on a structure we call the anterior cingulate, which is a regulator of emotion. It's the part of the brain that says, shut up, to the vestibular system. It tells the vestibular system to calm and regulate. And so what we find is that children and adults who have vestibular-related issues, they synonymously develop anxiety disorders. But what we are now learning is that people with anxiety-related issues subsequently end up with difficulties in vestibular processing. It's like a feedback loop. And this is an interesting thing for me because one of the things that I see in my clients with mental health-related issues is that their postural systems change, their balance systems change, their movement systems change. And what the research is doing is supporting why that is happening. The more anxious you become, the less you move. The less you move, the more anxious you become. It's an amazing feedback, feed-forward cycle. So what does that mean clinically? It means that people who experience mental health-related issues need to move. Stephen Porges uses the terminology, less is more. When a brain is overstimulated, we often think about, how do I stimulate that brain to get it to work better? Small dosages, pieces of information that inform that brain can be so useful. It doesn't mean I have to get up and run on a treadmill to retrain my brain if I'm experiencing depression. Maybe I just need to rock my body consciously, mindfully, as a way of feeding my brain information that will support me in optimum brain health, that will subsequently support the way that I feel emotionally about myself. So once again, I wish you all the best for the holiday season and hope that you'll join me for future conversations around neurobiology and how it informs our clinical practice.